Hi, everyone. Today, Ben Farahmand is joining me, and
Hello.
I probably botched his name. How do you say your name?
It's Ben Farahmand.
You were
So
saying
that's
before
the English version.
the English version. So,
Yeah,
what's the other version?
sure. So I also speak Farsi because I'm Iranian, and in Farsi it's pronounced Farahmand. So yeah, it has a couple of different what syllables in the different locations.
I'm just not acclimated to putting those in there. So, thanks for letting me botch it a little bit. So, we were talking to Alex Coulomb the other day, and he said that he got to play through your game you're working on. He said it was the best thing that he's seen in the last couple of years. So, what are you doing?
Yeah, so for the past 3 years, I've been working on a board game, a cooperative board game called Faza, and it is the classic retelling of the alien invasion story, similar to like Mars Attacks or War of the Worlds, where you have these motherships coming in and they are wreaking havoc on the planet. And what is happening is that there are the players are now the last group of survivors that now have to work together and make their last stand against this onslaught of aliens. So the kinds of games that I enjoy playing are very much story based, and I wanted to also create a game that was very rich in lore and in story. And I love the campy retro science fiction alien invasion stories. So that's yeah, that's where it's coming from.
So, so it's a board game. What's its aesthetic like?
Sure. So let's see. If you could imagine the old Doctor Who, you have the Daleks and the Dalek ships, and Skaro being the Dalek homeworld, the buildings, and that aesthetic. That is very much. I found inspiration for the aliens from the Daleks, and then for the players, it was coming from the original Star Trek and looking at the various attire that they have, and then also trying to combine it with a historical Spartan um, aesthetic as well. And I don't know if you've ever played Fallout 1 or 2.
Yes, yeah, great
I
games.
Those were some of my favorite and most nostalgic games. So I also tried to borrow some of the aesthetics from Fallout because I so immensely enjoyed those those games, and they left such an impression on me in my childhood.
So I was taking a look at your Kickstarter, and you have looks like some pretty clever mechanical pieces that you've done on a cardboard. So can you talk about those?
Yes. Oh yeah. So what we've done is we've taken these motherships and they are made out of chipboard, so you can slide them and they're slotted, and you can then slide them together, and then they can hold dice right on top of it. If I had a copy of the game with me, I would show you, but I am unfortunately at my in-laws, and I don't have a copy.
We'll put some pictures somewhere in the the
Okay.
video.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so then we realized that what we could do is use the dice. So the dice were the first design, and they also count as the health meter for the motherships. And being able to elevate the dice above the board gives the UFOs and the dice a very ominous feeling to them that there's going to be impending doom very soon.
It felt like War of the Worlds, the old classic
Yeah,
War of the Worlds. These spaceships floating all over the board.
yep,
Really
that's
cool.
right. Thank you.
So what are the mechanics like? What are the game mechanics?
Sure. As I mentioned, it's a cooperative game, and one of the um, interesting things about it is that player turn is not enforced, which means everyone has a set of cards in their hands, and they can use these cards, which describe different actions they can take, in any order that is advantageous to their strategy. For example, let's say you and I were going against these motherships, and we realized we need to move 2 tiles over and we have to clear out some of the enemy drones to get there. What could happen is that I could choose to use maybe half of my cards, and then you can use one of your cards, and then I can use the rest of my cards, and we can just keep going back and forth at essentially the pace of our conversation. And I think that's one of the interesting things about FASA that um, makes everybody feel like a tactician, getting ready for battle, and it also, I think, makes it feel far more like a war is going on because, um,
Is it
I mean,
kind of
if you,
frantic, dropping cards and
yeah,
taking
yeah.
actions?
hmm
Oh man, it
So,
sounds great.
uh, like for example, like if you've played Pandemic,
Mm.
there's a lot of turn order and there's a lot of waiting around.
Yep.
That's one of the things I wanted to avoid in this game, and trying to figure out a strategy based on the turn order of the players that just happened to be enforced that way. So, um, yeah, it's one of the things I really enjoy, and people also seem to enjoy it as well.
So with that kind of really fast gameplay, like what's the duration of a say average game?
Sure. So it could, if a single person is playing by themselves, so it could go by about 45 minutes. If you start adding more people, up to four people, it can take anywhere between 90 minutes to about like 120 minutes. It's mostly because in group dynamics, as is with all kinds of team efforts, the more people you have involved in the conversation, the longer it takes to decide on what decision you want to make and deciding on which strategy is the optimal strategy to move forward with. So there's always that space for debate. Yeah.
So what's your creative process when you're putting your games together? Like, do
Uh,
you have any
making,
tricks?
yeah, making as many mistakes as possible. um, yeah, it is. That's really it. It's making as I'm joking. Besides the mistakes, I also have a background in design, but just kind of a general design, not like graphic design or industrial design. Um, so I come at game design with just the general design process in mind and being able to be comfortable with not knowing what the final solution is supposed to be and being comfortable with facilitating usability sessions, because that's also what I do professionally. I did user experience design for a while. Um, so, uh, yeah, the design process is essentially trying to come up with a prototype that borrows from game mechanics of other games that I really enjoy playing. And what it's been is it's just a lot of playtesting and trying to figure out which game mechanics actually captures the theme that I'm trying to, and the story that I'm trying to convey. And it's a lot of cutting away of rules and cutting away of game mechanics that don't seem necessary in telling that story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's essentially making mistakes, lots of mistakes, and having the opportunity to fix those mistakes, and uh, people feeling fine with telling me what's wrong with my game.
That's hard sometimes. It's
Sometimes,
sometimes. How many
well,
iterations have you done on play testing, and
and
did you ever strip it down from all the way down to the bare metal and came back up?
yeah, I did. And it must be over 250 or 300 playtests by now,
Wow,
and
that's a
this is
lot.
not including playtesting by myself. Um, the playtesting I do by myself would just be just making sure that the mechanics are functional and it's actually playable, not actually whether people will enjoy it. But um, I mean, since I started on this project about 3 years ago, it also just I have a lot of time to be able to uh, play test it. Let's see.
So did you win any awards? I believe I remember Alex saying that you won like best of show or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So there were actually two awards that has garnered, and the first one, which Alex was involved in, he was a judge for the Game Crafters Big Box Challenge, and that was about 2 years ago. And then last year, I submitted Faza to the Boston Festival of Indie Games, and they awarded Faza the best hobby game title. So that was really cool because I had no idea that was actually going to happen. After I had submitted the game, I didn't even hear from them until like the due date for um, of when they were supposed to like reach out to me about whether we were going to be in the showcase or not had passed by some number of weeks. So I thought they probably completely forgot about my game. But then after I reached out to them, they're like, "Oh no, you're going to be in the showcase. Just show up." Um,
Sweet.
yeah, so that was I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. People actually like this. It's it's not just me.
So is this your first game?
Yes, it's the first game that I've taken to this level of polish and that I'm bringing to market.
Have to admit, I backed your Kickstarter. So, and
Thank
you
you
reached your goal. So, congratulations on that.
so
That's
much.
Kickstarters are so much work. So, you should be very
They are.
proud
Thank
of that.
you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So, do you have any tricks for folks that want to get into this space? How to promote? How to get going?
Oh yeah, I do. So there's two things that come to mind immediately. The first one is just go to conventions. You have find local conventions, and for me, I was very lucky that so being based in Philadelphia, PAX recently started something called PAX Unplugged, and I've been going to that every year since its inception, and also going to PAX East since that's in Boston and that's relatively close for me. Um, so going to conventions essentially helps you figure out what kind of people really enjoy your game, and that I think is really important. Coming at this as a product developer, because I also work as a product manager, you're trying to find that product market fit. Um,
So, take it
and
it's not your full time gig doing this. So, yeah,
yes,
it's a
yeah,
passion project.
it is. It is. It is a hobby, and I'm it. Okay, so now there's three things I've got to share
Okay.
for tips. The second one is perseverance. You have to stick with it. Like there are so many times where after playtesting, there will be some kind of a problem with the game, and what you're just going to be stuck. You're going to be hitting a wall, and it is so hard to get past that hump. And the only thing I can say is you have to stick with it. There's no other way around these hard problems. You have to work on the hard problems, and you can try to keep playtesting, because sometimes what will happen is someone will suggest something, a really good idea, that you can keep traveling down and keep exploring this rabbit hole to see whether what they've suggested could potentially help the design of the game. And let's see, there was a third thing as well. Oh yeah, yeah. So working as a usability person professionally as well, one of the things that I borrowed from doing user testing is something called the Think Aloud protocol. And what that essentially is supposed to do is help you get inside of the person's head that is playing the game. So what you do is you ask them every time they look at something, try to express your thoughts. If you're trying to understand, if they're trying to make a decision, they have to explain okay, I'm playing this thing because I want to do that other thing. And then this gives you the opportunity to interject and ask questions like why are you doing this one, as opposed to any other decision that's in front of you. And I think going through that process helps refine the user interface for the board game as well.
Man,
Yeah,
that's a great tip. That's
yeah.
awesome.
That's something I use professionally as well for doing usability tests on websites. It's being able to uh, ensure that the person is explaining everything that they're looking at and everything that they're experiencing.
Oh, amazing. All right, last question. How can
Sure.
people find out about your Kickstarter? How can they find you?
Oh yeah. So there, you can go to Kickstarter and you can type in the word Faza, and it will show up, and it's spelled Faza. If you also search on Google for Faza, hopefully, I think we are on the first page. There's also a country somewhere that's also, or a city in a country somewhere that has a similar name, which I did not know when I first did this.
It'd be interesting
But
to see if your analytics are up in that particular region.
that would be amusing. Um, but yeah, you can message me on Twitter. You can message me through thefaza.com, and I will get an email if you submit any form, any contact us form on the website. So yeah, you should check out Faza because it's a great game.
Well, thanks. This was super fun. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, bye.